Today I want to talk about outdoor activity, outdoor fitness, and how that kind of can relate to health. So we're going to start the presentation off with looking at the BMI. So BMI is body mass index, and it's sort of a ratio of height to weight. So take a few minutes there and try to find yourself on this graph. And the reason that BMI was developed initially was actually to kind of stratify disease risk for life insurance clients. So life insurance companies in the early part of the 1900s developed these BMI tables to determine how likely their clients are to die, essentially. And what BMI says here then is that the larger you are, the more likely you are to develop chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and eventually heart disease, which is going to kill most of us. Heart disease is the #1 killer of Americans. So the big problem here is that in the United States currently, about 70% of the adult population is overweight. And again, that's not a huge deal, but over 35% of the adult population on average is obese. And another really scary thing is that the childhood obesity rates have tripled in the last 30 years or so. I want to show you a map, and this is where the Colorado remaining blue kind of comes in. This is a map of obesity rates by state, and I'm going to show you maps from 1990 to 2010. But you'll notice there that the lighter colors represent low obesity rates, and as we get into the yellow, the orange, and the red, obesity rates start to get up to about 20, 25, and 30%. So we're going to start in 1990, and I'll just slowly click through these. And I want you to pay attention to the trends in these color changes. So Colorado is still the only blue state. They still have the lowest rate of obesity. But by looking at the change in color patterns across that map in the last 20 years, it's obvious that our country's population is getting more and more obese. So again, Colorado now, my title of the presentation is kind of misleading. As you leave Colorado now, it's no longer blue. Colorado has now surpassed the 20% obesity rate. They're at 21%. They're still have the lowest obesity rates in the country. One other thing I want to show you is physical activity levels by county. This is across the entire country. And again, the lighter colors here represent more people, or I guess less people that are physically inactive. And by physically inactive, this means that they do not get any physical activity on a regular basis. In Texas, we only have about 1% of the land in Texas is public land. The rest of it is privately owned, which means it's very difficult to do a lot of outdoor activities because you have to pay for them. If you look at the states out west, like Colorado for instance, over half of the state is public land. So you can literally drive out your back door and go to a national forest or BLM land, your land management lands, and go do almost anything you want. You have everything from hiking to trail running to mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, anything you want year round. You can step out your back door and go do something active, and it's fun. Minnesota's another one. There's a lot of outdoor activity people do. And then in the Northeast, public transportation, walking, and just general physical activity is higher in the Northeast. Big numbers here to look at. For every pound of fat, a pound of fat is approximately 3,500 calories. So if you want to lose a pound of fat, you have to burn 3,500 calories more than you take in. One other thing I want to show you briefly is just basics of human metabolism. There are three kind of variables that determine how many calories you burn each day. The biggest one is what's called basal metabolic rate, or called BMR there. Basal metabolic rate is just what the energy we expend just to keep ourselves alive. So the one on the end there, the TEF, stands for the thermic effect of food, which is the amount of calories we expend just to burn food, to eat, to chew, swallow, digest, and absorb, and utilize the food. The big thing there I have in italics is activity. So activity is anything you do beyond getting out of bed every day. We talk about exercise specifically as being a type of physical activity that we're purposely trying to burn calories or strengthen muscles or improve flexibility. But activity you need to think of as just any movement at all. We call that NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And this is where people are really losing out on. I want to show you something really quickly here. These are recommendations. I've all seen these a million times. The recommendations are just not enough. These recommendations are provided to prevent the development of chronic diseases, but it's not enough to maintain healthy body weights, and it's just not enough because we spend so much time physically inactive. Saw a good presentation by a guy named Mark Tremblay. But one of the results of some of Mark Tremblay's research is he looks at they use physical activity as an intervention in obesity treatment of people. And when they add in physical activity in people's minds, that gives them, and not necessarily physical activity, but actual exercise. When you add in exercise, that gives people's, I think they give themselves a little hall pass to do whatever they want for the rest of the day. The exercise there is in red. When they add in the exercise, the blue, the NEAT, that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, actually decreases. So they're still burning the same amount of energy in physical activity. Another interesting thing here that Dr. Tremblay talked about quite a bit was the idea that it's not physical activity that we're not getting enough of, it's that we're getting too much sedentary behavior. This is a 12-year follow-up study of survival rate, comparing that to how much time people spend inactive. We live in San Angelo, and San Angelo has a ton of stuff available. So we're actually quite lucky. In San Angelo, we have the state park in the city, pretty much in the city limits. Most places you have to drive 20, 30 minutes to get to a state park. We have Lake Nassau, the ASU Lake House facilities. You've all been to the Lake House facility. Have any of you all taken advantage of the kayak rental? In addition to the Lake House facility, we have outdoor adventures down there at the very bottom. We have Twin Buttes Reservoir in the surrounding land. So there's actually still water there. Not very much, but there's still water in Twin Buttes, so you can boat and fish. Middle Concho Park is kind of right next door to the Twin Buttes, and that's typically free during different times of the year, but I think there's like a $3 entry fee sometimes during certain parts of the year. Concho River goes through town. If any of you are into fishing or canoeing or kayaking, you can go right there on the river, and there's 54 miles or so of trail of river right in town. Road Lizards, we don't necessarily need to click on that, but the Road Lizards is a local running group. I didn't put the bike group on here because I don't know what it's called. I haven't been affiliated with it, but Bill is involved with the biking in town. The ASUFit, of course, we're all involved with ASUFit. That's what we're here today.